I genuinely believe that this Warriors team might be on the verge of shocking the NBA once again. And not in some fairy tale where everything breaks the right way, but in a real gritty, prove you wrong type of way. When they first brought in Jimmy Butler, the team looked nearly unbeatable. His arrival added a whole new edge, and for a stretch, Golden State had that terrifying aura back. But as the regular season wound down, the cracks started to show. They stumbled just enough to drop out of the playoff picture and into the play-in tournament. Not exactly where you'd expect a championship pedigree team to land. Still, after they handled the Memphis Grizzlies, it felt like something clicked. They looked like themselves once again, focused, fiery, and suddenly dangerous. And now, with a juicy first-round matchup against the young and fearless Houston Rockets, there is a very real shot that this team can make a deep run. In that Memphis win in particular, it said a lot about the team, especially Jimmy Butler. There were three major takeaways from that game, and the first one is simple. Playoff Jimmy is alive and well, even in a Warriors jersey and out in the Western Conference. Since landing in the Bay, Butler has mostly leaned into an understated role, defending hard, making smart passes, and playing off of Steph and Draymond. In a lot of ways, he's been this era's version of Andre Iguodala, but the difference, Jimmy still has that extra gear he can go to offensively. He can get buckets basically whenever he chooses, making him almost like a hybrid between Iguodala and Durant. For much of his time in Golden State though, we hadn't seen him tap into that side of his game, but that has all changed over the last two outings. Against the Clippers, Jimmy was spectacular, posting 30 points, 9 assists, and 2 stocks, shooting a ridiculous 60% from the floor over the stretch of a grueling 48 minutes. And then he turned right around against the Grizzlies and raised the bar. 38 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 3 steals, again coming on elite efficiency despite battling through a quad injury. While the Luka for Anthony Davis blockbuster deal was by far the most flashiest move of the year, I'd argue that the Jimmy to Golden State trade has actually been more impactful in terms of how much it's improved the team. Before his arrival, Golden State had some glaring issues. Their defense was wildly inconsistent as they lacked the switchability and toughness required to cover for Steph. Butler has brought all that with him, and then some. He's gave them a secondary scorer who can create his own shot, which took pressure off of Steph and made opposing defenses think twice before sending everything they've got at Curry. Offensively, he's been the glue, making the right passes, taking care of the ball, and he always plays within the rhythm of the offensive system. But maybe the most underrated thing that he brought was his ability to draw contact and get to the free throw line. Before the trade, Golden State was near the bottom of the league in free throw attempts, 23rd to be exact. Since Jimmy's arrived, they've skyrocketed to 3rd. That's not just a small thing. For an aging team, those extra trips to the line is like built-in rest. They slow the game down, give veterans a breather, and shift momentum. Against Memphis, Jimmy shot 18 free throws, making 12. His funky, unpredictable rhythm throws off defenders, and his timing, attacking early or just waiting long enough, makes him a nightmare to defend cleanly. He's been a master foul grifter, something that's not easy to teach. If the Warriors are going to keep this run going, they need Jimmy to be more aggressive, not just as a connector, but as a scorer. He needs to make defenses pay for overloading on Steph, and over the last 2 games, he's been able to do so, but he has to continue to do it. The second thing that really stood out in the game versus Memphis is the fact that Steph Curry is still one of the best players on the planet. Sure, Jimmy led the way in scoring, but it was only by a single point, because Steph wasn't far behind. 37 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. And this came after a rough start where it looked like it just wasn't going to be his night. We've seen these types of physical defenses give him some problems, especially as he's gotten older. And the Grizzlies' defense was very physical on Steph basically all night. But the thing about Steph is that he just doesn't stop. He battled through it, kept finding windows, and eventually got into rhythm. When it counted the most, he showed up and took over down the stretch. He made 2 massive threes in crunch time to help ice the game. It's in these moments where Golden State's championship DNA shines through. Afterward, Jimmy Jimmy summed it up in only the way he can. I think any team has a chance with me on it, but I know every team has a chance with Steph on it. I get to play Robin. That's my Batman. And in this game, it honestly felt more like a Superman-Batman combination, as this was maybe the best game that the duo has played together. Steph still absolutely has that gear, as there's no doubting the fact that he can absolutely still be a number one on a title team, especially having Jimmy as his Robin. And maybe the biggest swing factor in that win, and in the playoffs in general, was the free throw disparity. Golden State shot 34 free throws compared to Memphis's 23. That's a huge margin in a playoff setting where open shots become harder to come by and every possession feels like it could be life or death. Steph and Jimmy combined to generate a ton of those looks, and sure, Jimmy got a couple of those calls that, let's say, were questionable at best, but the majority were well earned. That advantage from the line was a huge difference, not only in this game, but many games ahead. When Steph and Jimmy have shared the floor together, the Warriors have been able to get to the free throw line at a ridiculous rate, boasting an incredible free throw rate of 26.6 per 100 possessions, which is good enough to put them in the 99th percentile when it comes to getting to the free throw line, as they can do it basically whenever they want to. Then there's the third thing that was made clear in the Memphis win, and maybe the most frustrating, as it genuinely looks like this could be the end of the road for Jonathan Kuminga in a Warriors jersey. Over the last two games, arguably the most important ones of the season, JK didn't play a single minute. Not one. He wasn't hurt and he was available to go, but yet Steve Kerr didn't play him. And it wasn't like he was squeezed out by other battle-tested vets either. Guys like Quinton Post, Buddy Hield, and Santos got time. Earlier this year, I mentioned that managing Kuminga's minutes would be one of the most important things going down the stretch of the season for Golden State, and Steve Kerr was going to have to trust him more than he's done in the past. But now, it seems like Steve Kerr has had a solution to that problem, and that is to just not play Kuminga at all. With Kuminga's contract situation looming this summer, it's hard not to wonder if he's played his last meaningful minutes in Golden State. And that is just tough to swallow for Warrior fans, because he's one of the most exciting, young, explosive, and athletic talents we've got in the league right now, and they could definitely use him moving forward. But Steve Kerr clearly doesn't see a place for him in the system. From a fan's perspective, that feels borderline crazy. We've seen flashes of what Jonathan Kuminga can do, the power, the burst, and his defensive upside. But this isn't new for Steve Kerr. He did the same thing with Brandon Ingram and Jason Tatum in Team USA just gone, as maybe he's just got a blind spot for these certain types of wing players. Guys who need the ball a little bit and can be a little turnover prone, and maybe haven't fully figured out how to play Kerr ball. But whatever the case may be, it feels like this is going to cost the Warriors one of the most exciting young players in the game. And if I were Kuminga, I'd be ready to take my talent somewhere else that's going to let me actually play. Now, the focus shifts to the first round matchup against the Houston Rockets. And honestly, this one's going to be fascinating. Believe it or not, if you look at your favorite sports betting app right now, the Warriors are actually listed as the favorites in the series. That's wild, considering we're talking about a 7 seed versus a 2 seed. It tells you just how much respect Golden State, and probably more importantly, Steph Curry, still commands around the league. But do not let the odds fool you. This is going to be a brutal, hard-fought series, and it's one that poses some real problems for the Warriors, especially Steph. In their most recent meeting, the Warriors absolutely clamped him. Curry finished just 1 of 10 from the field, recording just 3 points and 4 turnovers, as Golden State took an ugly loss on their home floor. And this wasn't some off night. It was a result of Houston's defensive scheme working to perfection. Their defense is practically built to slow Steph down, with guys like Dylan Brooks, Amen Thompson, and Tari Eason, long, physical, switchable wings who love nothing more than getting up into your grill. They've got the exact personnel you'd want to throw at Steph to wear him down. Rockets coach Ime Udoka has preached a bruising physical style all year, and against Golden State, he's made that blatantly clear. Force them to play a style they're uncomfortable with. Basically, just go out there and beat them up. And the Rockets absolutely did that last time. But here's the thing about that game that many people forget, and that was how passive Jimmy Butler was in that matchup. He took just 7 shots. 7. That's absolutely not going to cut it, not in a series like this. Jimmy's been brilliant lately, and if the Warriors want to win this series, they need him to be aggressive from the opening tip. What we've seen in the last 2 games from him suggests that he's ready for that moment. He started hunting his own shot again, playing with more urgency, and that is going to force Houston to make some uncomfortable decisions early in the series. If Jimmy's cooking, they can't afford to fully sell out on Steph the same way they did, and that extra bit of space might be enough to get Curry going in that series too. That being said, this isn't going to be easy for Jimmy either. As incredible as playoff Jimmy has been in the past, I don't think he's ever gone up against a defense as tailor-made to slow him down as this Rockets squad is. Dillon Brooks will likely be his primary matchup, and love him or hate him, Brooks is exactly the type of defender who can give Jimmy trouble. He's strong, quick, physical, and most importantly, he loves the challenge. And even if Brooks does get into foul trouble, Houston has a bottomless pit of defenders they can rotate in. Amen Thompson can switch over when Steph's not on the floor, and Tari Eason, the second half of Houston's so-called Terror Twins, is another nightmare matchup. Tari Eason and Amen Thompson make up the Terror Twins, as they are basically built in a lab to guard positions 1 through 4, and when they share the court, they wreak havoc. The Rockets are a plus 9.9 in net rating when those two play together, which puts them in the 91st percentile league-wide. They are holding opponents to just 110.6 points per 100 in the 84th percentile, while also scoring 120.5 on the other end. That is elite two-way play, and it's been a major weapon for them all season long. But maybe the most dangerous look Houston can throw at Golden State is their double big lineup with Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams. Since the All-Star break, that pairing has straight up been devastating. Over the course of 334 possessions, they've posted a ridiculous plus 30 net rating, landing them in the 100th percentile as an overall lineup. Offensively, they're putting up 125.7 points per 100 possessions, good enough to be in the 98th percentile, and defensively, even better, just 95.7 points allowed per 100 possessions, again in the 100th percentile. It truly is the best of both worlds. And Golden State, with its lack of size and tendency to rely on small ball lineups, could be in real trouble if they can't punish that combo by speeding them up and getting downhill. The rebounding battle could be a series breaker. The Rockets lineup crashes the offensive glass at a ridiculous 50% rate, again in the 100th percentile. That means even when their initial offense stalls, or they might settle for a tough shot, there's a coin flip chance that they're going to get another look. And against a smaller Warriors team, that number would probably climb even higher. On the other end, they limit opponents to just 17% on the offensive glass, so you're not getting any second chances, and they almost always are. It's been a cheat code, plain and simple. The only real knock on Houston is their turnover rate. With this lineup, they give it away about 16.5% of the time, given the fact that they're one guy short on ball handling and creation in this lineup. But when you're that dominant in every other facet, it really hasn't mattered that much. So if you're Golden State, you've got to find a way to crack that double big lineup, because if you don't, that could be the single biggest deciding factor in this series. This is where someone like Kuminga could really help, and that's what brings me back to the biggest unknown going into this matchup. What happens with Jonathan Kuminga? It's hard to believe that after being benched for 2 straight high-stake games, that Kerr will suddenly turn to him now. But if there was ever a time to use him, it's right now. Kuminga's one of the only Warriors players who can match Houston's athleticism and strength. He can take guys off the dribble, finish through contact, add that vertical spacing that no one else on the roster really brings. Earlier in the season, he even dropped 33 points on this Rockets team and looked totally in his element. If Kerr gives him a shot and he delivers, maybe this isn't the end for Kuminga in Golden State. But if he stays buried on the bench, we might just be witnessing the final chapter of Kuminga's time in the Bay. And that's absolutely a tough pill to swallow, especially knowing how much talent he has and how if he gets an opportunity somewhere else, he could blossom into a star. For Golden State to survive this, they need to start strong. Stealing one of the opening 2 games in the series in Houston is almost a must. First off, it's going to be a physical war. Win or lose, the Warriors are going to come out of this series series bruised, and if they do advance, they'll have to face either the Lakers or Timberwolves, two teams that are also built to beat you up. This roster isn't young anymore, so any chance to shorten a series is gold. Second, this Rockets team is still young and relatively untested. If Golden State can punch them in the mouth early, take game 1 and or 2, that could shift all the pressure, potentially cracking Houston's confidence and flipping the entire series. But if the Warriors fall into an 0-2 hole, even if they do fight back, the toll on their bodies might be too much. So yes, Steph needs to keep being Steph. Jimmy has to stay in attack mode, and the rest of the roster, whether it's Podziemski, Draymond, Kuminga if he plays, or even a guy like Moses Moody, has to step up as well. The margin for error is too small, but if everything clicks, I believe this team has enough left in the tank to make another run. And if you're curious just how far I think Golden State will go, along with every other title contender, you can check out this video now where I break down every team's most realistic path to the championship.